Previously on the Lois and Clark Rewatch.
The ending, when Clark asks her to marry him, it was shot 3 different ways. The one way was the way we saw in the episode where she's like, well, Clark,
will you marry me?
Clark.
There was another one where she asks, who's asking, Clark or Superman? And then there was a third ending where Lois actually just says yes.
I actually came away from this episode thinking that this has nothing to do with her saying either yes or no. That's what they want you to believe by cutting her off. I think this has everything to do with her revealing that she knows Clark is Superman.
Who's asking? Clark? Or Superman?
What the Sam Hill's going on here?
The Rewatch Podcast presents the Lois and Clark Rewatch, dedicated to the series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman on ABC. Join us each week as we investigate the origins of the Man of Steel and uncover crime in Metropolis. Send your feedback to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or follow us on Twitter @rewatchpod.
Oh, hey! Let's get back to it.
And welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast and our Lois and Clark Rewatch. I'm Cory.
And I'm just running so far behind. I can't believe how far behind. I got so much to do. I'm just trying to get ahead. Wah, wah.
Going with the pun.
Yes.
Gotta love it.
I'll be here all week, folks. Tip your waiters and waitresses.
Dun, 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 dun. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. We're here discussing 2 more episodes of Lois and Clark, and this week's headline reads, Talk Ordinary. And we're discussing, we have a lot to talk about, and ordinary people. So let's get straight into it. Our first episode discussion is We Have a Lot to Talk About, written by John McNamara and directed by Philip Sgriccia. And this originally aired September 17th of 1995.
So, how mad are you?
I'm not mad.
Excuse me?
I'm not mad at all.
Lois, this is not really a time to hold back.
I'm not.
I'm sorry. I was talking to Lois Lane. I know she was here a second ago, and I know she wouldn't really react.
I'm hurt.
Oh.
I'm really, really hurt.
Which is going to be worse than mad, isn't it? Okay, Lois, okay. I've been rehearsing this for months. Let's see if I can get it right. I know this is a shock. And I wanted to be the one to tell you so that you could understand how hard this has been for me. How I've carried this secret by myself. And how long I have wanted to tell you. But when I decided to become Superman, I
became a target. And so anybody close to you became a target, and it just got more complicated when you realized you loved me.
Which was about 2 minutes after I met you.
Don't try and score points.
Sorry.
Look, I get it. I really do. It's logical, it's even thoughtful. It's just when you get right down to it, you made me believe that you were 2 different people, and you did that by lying. And that makes me feel like I don't know you, and that really hurts me, and you know what? I am mad. I'm really mad. I'm really, really mad. Clark, I'm just furious.
Lois,
I cannot believe
okay?
and you're super...
Please, somebody help me!
Go. Go!
After Clark pops the big question to Lois, she answers with a question of her own. Who's asking her, Clark or Superman? Facing death made her senses more aware of everything, and noticed that both Clark and Superman touched her cheek in the same manner. While eventually she does feel anger at being deceived, she feels hurt more at the loss of trust she feels. Superman is needed momentarily, but when he arrives on the scene, the man in peril has been saved by the Church Group. Just one of the many ways that Bill Church Sr. is trying to reform his image after a life-threatening heart attack. Superman decides to patrol the city, but asks Lois again about marriage, to which she replies that it's too much information too fast and she needs time to process it. Meanwhile, Bill Sr. reveals another change in his life to his son, Bill Jr., his new wife, Mindy, who he met as his nurse during his hospital stay. After Bill Sr. unveils his plans for the dismantling of Intergang, his new church group, as well as his idea of putting the world's great works of art into his Cosmart stores, Bill Jr. and Mindy hatch a plan to send Sr. into retirement so that Jr. can take over and run things. Working on a tip from Bobby Big Mouth, Lois investigates an explosive expert and discovers something being planned at the Museum of Art. Lois, however, soon finds herself the target of the explosive expert, who has placed a bomb that is in no way over-elaborate at all into her apartment, forcing her into an exercise that'll cause her to collapse from strain and thus set off the bomb. Superman shows up to rescue her after saving a nuclear power plant from having a meltdown, but the already strained relationship between Lois and Clark just makes things worse. A visit from Ma and Pa helps to alleviate some of the tension as they both share with Lois and Clark their own experiences when Jonathan asked Martha to marry him. The talks do their magic as Clark starts to understand Lois's reluctance, and Lois understands the feeling of loneliness, not just Clark's, but Martha's as well all these years. Seeing that Lois survived, Junior and Mindy invite her and Clark to the museum's party so that they can add them to the list of casualties for their ultimate plan of implicating Bill Sr. in the bomb explosion. When Clark discovers the bomb, it's revealed that if he tries to move, he will trigger the explosion. With Clark's help, Lois disarms the bomb, and Bill Church Sr. and Jr. are both arrested as police work on a tip that linked the two of them to the crime, a tip that came from Mindy, who has now positioned herself as the new head of Intergang. Elsewhere, Lois and Clark rekindle their romance, with Clark saying he will wait for Lois as long as it takes, and Lois assuring Clark that he's not alone anymore.
Mindy? What is it?
Oh, Billy. Nothing. Nothing.
Is Dad okay? Hey, what is it?
Well, I know we don't know each other real well, and there's no reason why you should trust me.
Well,
I think your father's very sick.
sick, huh?
Well, he's going crazy. He keeps talking about his new mission and the way he's spending money.
Yeah, I've seen the reports.
He just bought half a museum in London because he wanted to be surrounded by beauty. Oh, if this keeps up, there won't be anything left for us.
Well, the thought had occurred to me.
Oh, well, I'm just his wife. I don't understand all this business. But I really think it'd be best for everybody if maybe he
Yes?
retired.
And I ran things the way they should be? Well, he's not just gonna step down.
Oh, I know. I'll do anything you say, Billy.
Anything? Wait a minute. You're married to my father. Ooh, this is great.
Okay, let's investigate this episode a bit further.
All right, so that little bit that they had where Senior says to Junior he wants to dismantle Intergang, basically Bill Campbell turns around and he's like, and he's doing that whole laughing bit, and then everybody starts laughing. That wasn't supposed to be in the script. That was just something that they came up with while they were shooting, which I like that little bit. I mean, like, you've seen it a million times before, you know, in movies and TV shows, but it's still funny.
Yeah, it's a good bit. It's just Bruce Campbell doing his thing.
Exactly. All right, so there was supposed to be an extra scene with Perry and Jimmy. Once again, they were looking at Lois and Clark, and they were talking about, remember how they were talking about getting their own lives? Mm-hmm. So we have Perry and Jimmy, and they're talking about, you know, Jimmy's like, so how's your golf game going? Oh, you know, this all right. Did this. And how's your love life? Well, same old. And then they turn around and they start spying on Lois and Clark again, you know, to see what's going on, because it's like not that interesting. And then they're watching and they see Lois come in and try to hug Clark, and they end up just shaking hands. And Perry's like, they're doing this to us on purpose to torture us. I'm like, you know, that's like, I think they're putting the fans' feelings in there or something, you know? It's pretty funny. I wish they had left that in there. That would have been good. When Lois and Clark meet with Bill Church and Mindy, Bill Jr. was supposed to get involved in that conversation, you know, and instead of, you know, when they ask about his connections to Intergang and all that, he was supposed to say, you know, Mr. Kent, Miss Lane, my father's alleged past is just that. Alleged and past. So why don't we take a cue from the masterworks being brought in here and get our minds out of the gutter? I don't know why they cut it. I mean, it's just, don't really need it, but it was, more Bruce Campbell is always good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. When Clark throws the ring into space, there was supposed to be a scene of Clark just walking away before Superman goes up and catches it in space. Just a little extra moment there to make you think that he's really done. Like he's just forgetting about it. Jonathan had an extra line to Clark, which I thought was really kind of neat. He said to him, they're having that conversation about posing and all that. And he says, last piece of advice, son. I know she's a handful sometimes, but trust me, she's a rare woman, a fighter. And fighters never let you down. I know. I married one myself. That's a nice little moment, you know?
Sounds like something Jonathan would say.
Yeah, it makes you, makes you really think about, this is how he views his wife. She's like a strong woman. Like like we know this, but it's neat to see him think that.
Yeah, for sure.
And this was, this was a weird, I don't get this little bit between Perry and Jimmy that they cut out. Lois and Clark kiss, at the museum party, and Perry and Jimmy are once again watching off from a distance. And Jimmy says, Chief, you're not back in that bad habit place again, are you? And then Perry says, son, they need us. They've been floundering without our cool objective eye. I know it won't be easy, but we've got to dive back in. And Jimmy confesses, he says, well, the getting my own life thing wasn't really panning out anyway. I get that part. The whole thing about the bad habit place. I mean, maybe they think watching them is a bad habit.
I guess so.
I guess that's what they're referring to. But there's a weird little interchange there between the two of them. Or exchange.
And I never told you this before, but your mother turned me down the first time I asked her to marry me.
What? You're kidding.
Actually, the first 2 times.
Well, what did you do?
I sulked, dove into my work. Unfortunately, it was winter, so I looked pretty silly plowing up all those fields in the snow. Anyway, around springtime, I finally realized that getting married wasn't just about my feelings. My mom was young. She was scared. She knew that she loved me, but was it a lifetime kind of love? She needed
Time. Time to think it over. To get to know him for who he really is. That's not unreasonable.
Oh, not at all. But you need to understand that Clark has always been alone. When he was 13 and just beginning to be really strong, really strong, he made the decision on his own never to tell anybody. He said he wanted to fit in. But of course, he couldn't. Not really. It broke my heart watching him having to hide so many things. Afraid he was always going to be alone.
I love him.
Oh, then tell him. And make him tell you. You can get through everything else. God, I turned Jonathan down 4 times before we finally made it down the aisle.
Really?
Yes, I thought he was crazy. Every time I turned him down, he'd go out and plow another field of snow. This is so nice. Almost 30 years. You're the first woman I've ever been able to talk to about my boy. Oh.
All right, well, we're getting into the main story, and our lead here, Revelations and Reformed Ruffians. So, Lois knows Clark is Superman.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Finally got there, and it's not in the past, and they're not going to wipe it away from her or anything. So, cool.
Yeah, I'm glad this is the way they went. That it wasn't just like Lois going, yes, of course I'll marry you. I'm just so head over heels in love.
Exactly.
She's going to take her time.
Yeah, and it shows her journalism, her background. Like she thought about it and she deduced it herself.
Yeah, and we talked so much last season about how Clark had to run away all the time.
Yes.
The excuses were getting just really thin. I think here, it kind of, like, even though he has to run away in the middle of their conversation while they're talking all this out, I kind of didn't mind it, the fact that he does have to go and be Superman, and she knows now that he is running off to be Superman. It didn't feel so bad anymore.
There's a little bit that I'll have to say about that in the next episode. But yeah, she understands now what's going on.
Exactly. But yeah, Superman, because he was delayed trying to decide whether or not to run away, he actually shows up too late and finds these vigilantes running around, the church group.
Yes.
Which is it's an interesting name for this thing. Like, they call themselves the church group. And it took me a second to realize that they were called that because they've been established by Bill Church.
Exactly.
I'm like, the church group? That's so weird.
Never seen a church group like this before.
But it's funny because Lois actually, she's not too far behind Superman.
Yeah.
And she kind of says, like, you're a vigilante group. That's, like, against the law and stuff. And I'm like, Superman's pretty much doing the same thing, right?
Right, exactly.
Is Superman a vigilante?
Yeah, well, yeah, I would say so. You know, I mean, I never thought about it before. Like, most people think of, I know they say Batman, you know, automatically people think of him as, you know, a vigilante, but they don't usually think that way about Superman, but I guess technically he is.
And it's not something they really get back to, because really the episode goes in the direction of Bill Church trying to reform Intergang. It's not about this group of vigilantes, really.
The vigilante group is just, the church group is just like a side effect of what Bill Sr.'s trying to do to make Metropolis safe. It's not really a main... You know, not really a main point. It easily could have been, like, I'm thinking about it now, like, they could have stretched it out to, like, a whole episode, you know, and had some of this go into, like, a two-parter episode if they wanted to. Because, yeah, there is a whole thing about, if these guys are all over the place, then what is Superman's role now? And how does that factor into the police, you know, like, the whole vigilante thing? They could have done a whole bunch on this.
And the fact that Lois now knows that Clark is Superman, I thought that's where they were going to go. They were going to look deeper into what Superman does and how is Lois going to feel about that now that she has the full scope of things. But alas, that's not where they go.
Nope.
But at this point, Clark, now as Superman, asks Lois to marry him again, and she says no. So now we've seen Clark do it, we've seen Superman do it, and both times she's come down on no.
And next we'll have Dan Scardino do it. No, we're not going to have Dan. Let's not go there.
You might jinx it. Don't say his name.
I know. What are we doing? It's like Voldemort, you know?
Or Beetlejuice or something.
Exactly. They'll come back. They'll come back. Shut up. Don't say it. Don't say it again. Don't say it one more time.
But yeah, Billy Jr., he arrives back from the Tokyo branch of Intergang, I guess.
Yeah.
And he finds that his father has married his nurse named Mindy. Now, they get in this whole thing that, like, Mindy is going to convince Billy Jr. to try and overthrow his father and stuff. Like, she kind of feels like he's spending all their money trying to reform Intergang and stuff like that. And I just kept thinking, I thought Bill Church was already retired. Isn't that why we have Billy Church in the first place?
That's what I guess we thought that. I was trying to think back if they, did they say he actually retired? Like, I can't remember what we said in the previous episodes when Bruce showed up for the first time. Did we say that?
That's what I thought he said. Like, he said, oh, my father's retired. He's off improving his golf game, so now I'm the head of Intergang,
yeah.
Right?
Well, you know, maybe, I mean, just because you're retired doesn't mean you don't have some stake in things. You know what I mean? Like, maybe since, I mean, it's a criminal organization, so it could be that he still holds power, because even though he's retired, he was the bigwig behind it all, so he can come back when he wants to and make changes if he sees fit.
Yeah, well, I just figured it was maybe just a bit of a slight retcon.
Yeah, that could be too.
Like, he's semi-retired, but it turns out he had suffered a heart attack as well, and that's when he met Mindy.
Yeah, so maybe they just said that was like as a cover-up, you know, to say, oh yeah, he's retired, quote unquote. I mean, I really have no idea how criminal organizations work, so I can't say exactly how their plans go, you know, like, oh, he's quote retired, you know, he's gonna be not with us for a little while. I don't know how that works, but that sounds good.
Yeah, they don't want to make the organization look weak or anything, so
exactly, he
had a heart attack, or well, let's just say he's retired.
Exactly.
But we got this character of Mindy, right, and she sort of is introduced as like the inspiration for Bill Church's reform. Like, he met her and suddenly everything was good, the roses smelled sweeter, and hey, we're gonna start the church group and we're going to protect Metropolis now. That's how it goes. It turns out she's just a conniving bitch.
Yes. Yeah, she's just playing the part as, you know, being kind of stupid, you know, with her voice and everything. And I thought the funny line was when Bruce Campbell, Bill Jr. says to Mindy, boy, you shelled some good drugs in that hospital, don't you, Min? She's like, huh? You know, it's like, that made me laugh.
Yeah, she's over the top. Like crazy
Yeah,
over
very
the
over
top.
the top.
I'm glad it sort of turned out that she was more playing a part
Exactly.
than that's her actual personality.
Mm-hmm.
She was doing that to appear stupid, to appear like the kind of woman who may fall in love with this old dude.
Yep.
But really, this is her long play to gain control of Intergang, pretty much, right?
Yep.
I'm sure we're going to get more of a backstory as we go along this season.
We assume.
She
Yes.
does manage to talk Billy into maybe setting up his father. Let's blow up this museum where he's bought all these works of art and make it look like he's trying to perform some sort of insurance scam or something. That way he'll be out of the way, and then Billy can take over, and he and Mindy can have their weirdo son-stepmother relationship thing that they got going on.
I know. I know. Which, I mean, you know, they're not really blood relations, so it's not as creepy as it seems, but I love the whole thing. Like, they didn't go there with a couple of jokes they could have made, you know, but I love when she's like, you have no reason to trust me. And he just looks down. You know, he looks down and then he looks up. He's like, well, you know, like they could have put some jokes in there, but they didn't. It was funny. I like the way they did it.
Yep. Boobies make the world go round, apparently.
They do.
But we get back to Clark, and he's talking with Lois, and of course she's still very upset with this whole thing. She's obviously...
Right.
I don't think it's that she's upset. She's just really struggling to come to terms with everything, and that's kind of just displaying as being severely upset and angry. Because she's Lois. That's her personality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Clark has to open up to her a bit more and say, look, I asked you to marry me first. The decision I made, I wanted you to say yes to me, Clark, not to Superman. You know, I think we said that in that final episode, like, he was going to reveal who he was to her. The whole episode.
Right.
And then it ends with, will you marry me? You're like, that was weird. I guess you couldn't put all the blame on Tony Blake and Paul Jackson, but...
No, you can't.
It was their script, and I think they may have realized that at the end. So they kind of had to sort of, you know, find a way to sort of reveal why he asked her to marry him instead of revealing his identity, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I go with it because you don't want her marrying him just because of what what he does as Superman. It's just like when you ask anyone to marry you or be with you, you want them to be with you for you, not because you have a fancy car or you have a high-paying job.
Yeah, it's fair enough, really. I can understand that. I can go with that. It's a good explanation.
Yeah.
But it seems like we've got a reoccurring theme here of people trying to blow up Lois.
Right.
Like, how many times have people planted a bomb now to try and take out Lois and or someone around Lois? Because Bobby Big Mouth tells Lois about this guy that's been brought into town. His name's Joe Arlo, or Joe the Blow. He's the one who's going to go ahead and try and blow up the museum.
I did like Bobby Big Mouth's brief little line there about how he's trying to his food obsession is masking a deeper emotional need or something. Because we've seen the psychiatrist so much the last couple episodes. It's like, oh, that's good. And he's like, no, I'm just trying to stop myself from eating your pillow or your chair or whatever. It's funny.
It is really good. I'm glad Bobby Big Mouth is back for the season anyway. I'm sure he's going to show up here and there just like he did last season. He's a good, like, Deus Ex Machina kind of character. Hey, you need some info? Well, let's have a quick throwaway scene with Bobby Big Mouth.
Right. I didn't realize how much he was in, like, the series as a whole. Like, I remembered the character, and I was just, like, when he first appeared, I was like, he's all right, you know, but he's grown on me, and I didn't realize he was in it so much.
Yeah, so she's been caught out snooping around. So Billy and Mindy distract Superman, and they plant this jumping jacks bomb in Lois's place. Now, this is a classic bad guy mistake. So Joe the Blows set up this bomb, and she's there and she's doing jumping jacks and whatnot. Like, why not just blow her up?
Exactly.
Like, if he just decided to blow her up, she would be dead.
Yeah, and it's like he was told by Junior to get rid of Lois, and this is the plan he comes up with? Because this is not going to get, I mean, yeah, eventually it might get rid of her, but this is not a good job for an assassin. You know, like, I know he's not an assassin, he's explosive experts, but still, why wouldn't you just, like, plant a bomb that just blows her up, like you said? It's like, this is like Batman 1966 TV show type of death, you know?
Exactly.
It's like, wah, ha, 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 ha.
You've let it stretch out long enough that Superman can fix the distraction that you've thrown his way. And now he can come back and save her. I'm sure it's at the very last second, but still.
I mean, I know what they're going for here, but still, it's like, nah, it's kind of, you know, really, you know, come on.
But then it's great to have Martha and Jonathan back to come and talk some sense into both of them. And it's a good little, cross-cut scene of Jonathan talking to Clark and Martha going to see Lois. I can't say I ever really thought about it, but when Martha sits down and says, look, you're the first woman I've had that I can talk to about Clark. The only other person she's had her whole life is Jonathan. It's not like a mother to sit down and have a full-on conversation with her son about how she feels about the fact that they found him out in a field somewhere.
Right.
So she's only had her husband. So now suddenly she's got this other woman here. And they can sit down and they can talk about the craziness of the situation. I mean, he's an alien. They found him. They raised him like a son. Like, there's going to be a lot she wants to talk about and get out.
Exactly, yeah, because it's been years. Like, she can't tell anybody. I've never thought about that before because we've always focused on Clark. It is neat to see her side of it. Like, yeah, she also feels alone. She can't share like a mother normally would.
And then their back and forth, between the two scenes is excellent. When Jonathan says, look, how can I relate this to you? Oh, well, I never told you that your mother turned me down the first time I asked her. Well, the first 2 times.
Right.
And then Martha's like, Jonathan asked me 4 times to marry him before I said yes.
Exactly.
So, yeah, just the way the scenes were cut backwards and forwards. I really loved it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a good scene. It's nice to, like as we always say, we love seeing them and everything. It's great to have them back. So, yeah, well done. Now, this is something that iReactions had mentioned in his notes when he was sending the deleted scenes and trivia and all that. And I had thought about this too, because this is just something that I don't think is going to change at all for the series. The Daily Planet is basically a police precinct. They basically act like cops, and Perry is the chief of police. Because he said, isn't it odd that Perry summons the bomb squad like he's the police chief? He's like, Lois, we're going to the party with the Metropolis Bomb Squad. It's like he's going to get on the phone like, we need the bomb squad here. Oh, who the hell are you? It's like, you're not our boss. It's like, come on. So he makes a very good point there.
He does come out later at the party and he's just like, the bomb squad's making a complete sweep as we do. I'm like, what? The bomb squad's keeping you updated?
I know. I mean, it's hard not to just go along with it. Like when you think about it, that's when it falls apart. You're like, oh my gosh, he's not the police chief. Why would they talk to you about this? Why would they tell you they're making this, you're not the chief. You just go along with it, just sort of the way it is now. And that's how they're doing it.
And then the bomb itself, I thought was an interesting idea. A way to sort of stop Clark being able to just swoop in and take the bomb away.
Yeah, see, this was good. This was a good way to do it.
It's like a motion tracker device or something. It's honed in on Superman's specific biological frequency or something.
Yeah.
It knows it's Superman. And if he moves at all, it's going to explode. So Lois has to get in there. This is a good bit of comedy, actually, because Perry's trying to talk to Clark, and he's saying Lois and Lane for yes and no, and she's trying to figure it all out. And it's a classic thing about, do I pull the red wire or the blue wire or something like that? Like, completely unrealistic when it comes to disarming a bomb. But it's a good bit of comedy, and I like it. It gives Lois something to do.
Perry's talking to him. Oh, son, did you lose her? He's like, Lane. Oh, come on, Clark. It was funny. There's a lot of good comedy in this episode.
Yeah, and it didn't feel forced at all. It was very nicely paced.
At first, I thought that Mindy felt forced to me at first, but then when you saw what she was eventually revealing, what her plan was, then you see, oh, it wasn't forced. This was how she was going to do it. I get it.
But then, of course, the 2 church guys, they're arrested, and Mindy takes over into gang.
And if you notice, and this is something that iReactions had said as well, like that's not, like that wasn't her real voice, of course, and he included he sent a YouTube clip that showed her talking on an interview, and her voice is very different. And if you listen carefully at the end of that scene where she's smoking a cigar, she has that dumb type voice, the voice that she put on, but then it just morphs very, very subtly, very, just for a short period to the very end of the scene where you can tell like, oh, that's her real voice right there. Much more menacing. So it was well done. I didn't expect that when I first saw it. I remember it happening, of course, but when I first saw it, I remember like, well, that's different. That's new. Didn't expect that at all.
Exactly.
I figured we were going to have Bruce Campbell for the rest of the inner gang storyline, but apparently, I guess not.
Yeah, they're mixing it up a little. Maybe Bruce Campbell has other things to do.
Now, the thing is, this is the sad thing. Because, like, Bill Sr. isn't really a bad guy anymore. He's honestly trying to turn things around. But the whole episode, I thought about this, the whole Daily Planet gang is wrong. They're trying to find out what Bill Church Sr.'s, motive is and why is he doing all this, and he must still be a criminal. But he's not. Like, he actually reformed and was trying to make Metropolis a better place. It's his son and his new wife who are the criminals. And it's just sad because he gets arrested for it and he's just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, he is a unfeeling murderer.
Well, yeah, he was, but see, having the retirement, having the heart attack, it sort of made him see things differently. He has a new lease on life, and he's like, you know what? I've done very bad things. I need to reform, and I need to change how I live my life. I want to fix things, and that's all he's trying to do. He's trying to fix what he messed up, but he's framed, which is, I know he still has all those other crimes that he has to pay for, of course. But it's like he's trying to do good, and he won't get the chance,
But at the same time, you can't feel too bad for him. He did murder like a lot of people.
He did. I'm just saying, he's trying. And like this whole thing, everything that happened in this episode is not really his fault. He's not doing any of the bad stuff.
And then we get to Lois and Clark flying up into the clouds and having a smooch.
It was a nice shot. It's one of those shots that just look nice. It's like an iconic shot, The two of them embraced, kissing in front of the moon. Like the E.T., when they ride the bikes in front of the moon. It's one of those type of shots.
Yeah, and Clark says, like, this is where I come to think sometimes, it's quiet and everything, and yeah, it's right. Romantic and cheesy, but you're right. It's iconic. So I like it.
I mean, this could easily be one of the, they haven't changed the credit sequence yet, really. And I think, from what I read, they're supposed to change that credit sequence for the opening credits. I think by the 3rd episode, they start using the new one for some reason. I don't know why they didn't start now, but yeah, this could easily be one of the shots that they put into that credit sequence. Just like for the first 2 seasons, we had Superman flying with Lois in through the Daily Planet window from the pilot. It's one of those type of moments.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, some bylines. So, without crime going on in the city, thanks to the church group, Perry has nothing to put on the front page.
I know. So sad. No crime. Now what are we going to print? He doesn't want to print the nice stuff.
It was a good line, too. It was like, what am I going to put on there? Girl Scouts reach sales goal or something like that. I was like, that's pretty funny. Yeah. And we did talk about it briefly, but of course, Perry and Jimmy are still digging into Lois and Clark's life. They just cannot let it go. It's far too interesting.
Which I remember that there are some good, well, at least I can think of one for each character, a good Perry and a good Jimmy episode that will be coming up sometime this season or next season. I don't remember, but they do focus on them more. But it's, like I said, it's nothing like the first season. I thought when Perry was talking to Clark, at the museum party, easily any of the stories that Perry tells could be turned into an Elvis story, very simply, I'm sure. I'm sure you could find some kind of relation there, and I wish they would have kept that in there. We haven't heard of Great Shades of Elvis in a long time.
I know. We get Judas Priest a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Judas Priest or What the Sam Hill. All right, well, Superman umpires a kid's baseball game. This was pretty good. Funny. It's not that he had to run away, it's that he tried to find something to do so he wouldn't have to deal with Lois.
Exactly.
And the kids just, like, don't care because he's making, like, bad calls and stuff.
This actually makes me think, when he was talking with Lois, when he first comes to the newsroom and she wants to talk to him, and he says, oh, wait, do you hear that? I hear a siren. We don't hear the siren like we normally do. So he's just trying to get away, which means he kind of lies right there.
But it is awkward between the two of them.
It's very awkward, yeah. It's very awkward.
Any reason to just be like, I gotta go.
But I mean, like, every time we've seen him go away, it's because he's had an actual reason. So it's just, I thought it was interesting this time. Oh, he's kind of, he's telling her a little lie there just because he wants to get away. Now, I don't know if you caught this or not. After he saves her from the aerobics jumping jack bomb, she hands him the broom, and he's like, well, all things considered, I'd rather be in Philadelphia. It's a funny line. Did you know that it comes from W.C. Fields?
What's W.C. Fields?
I was wondering if you knew. Yeah. He was a very old-timey actor, comedian back in like the maybe 20s, 30s, somewhere around there, like very old. You've probably seen him before. He usually had like a very, like his nose was a little large, and he's the guy who his voice is, he's like, get out of here, kid, you bother me, that type of thing.
Right.
It was an epitaph that he proposed for himself in an article that they wrote about him, and he said, that could be on his gravestone, basically saying, all things considered, I'd rather be in Philadelphia. instead of saying rip, rest in peace. That's what he wanted on his tombstone, and so it's been used before. I remember it when Reagan was president and he got shot, and they asked him, how he's feeling and everything. And Reagan even said, all things considered, I'd rather be in Philadelphia, So it's been something that's shown up, before. And when he said it, I was like, that's right. I remember that. So yeah, W.C. Fields, right? A little reference right there.
All right. Did you catch the Gotham reference?
Yeah, that was hard not to catch. I don't think they heard you in Gotham City.
That's good. Just a drop line. Don't make a big deal of it, but throw it in there. It's good fun.
Yeah, we just had Batman in there a couple episodes ago, so why not? Adam West Batman, but still.
I also noticed that Clark has a new secret costume cupboard.
Yeah, I didn't notice it.
Hidden behind his bookshelf.
Oh, okay.
It's built into the wall and everything. It rotates out and everything. I was like, okay, he's actually built something new.
That's a bit of a reference to the 66 Batman as well, because when they went down to change their outfits, the bookshelf, would move. Or was it the bookshelf? I think it was the bookshelf. Would move aside. Yeah. Or maybe it was maybe it was a clock. Maybe it was a grandfather clock. I don't know. Whatever.
Okay, what about the random black suit guy who tries to rob Lois, Jimmy, and Perry in the elevator?
Right. Well, he's from the church group.
Yeah.
He was the guy from the very beginning, the same, the guy who said, thanks for trying to help Superman. It was that same guy who was at the end, since he's not in the church group anymore, what's he going to do? And that's what he decides to do. He decides to turn to crime. Before the church group, that's what he was doing.
Yeah, it was like a stupid place to try and rob some people. In an elevator?
Exactly.
Seriously?
Exactly.
Where are you going to go? What if the elevator suddenly, shuts down or something like that? And then even when they get they're in, a busy foyer area. As if they can't just yell out, this guy's robbing us.
Exactly.
Worst criminal ever. Okay, and the other thing I noticed too, Lois wears 50 different outfits in this episode. They're vibrant and colorful, and I'm like, this is very different from a usual gray or beige pantsuit.
I know. I didn't notice how many, but I did notice there was one, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of bright. But yeah, I didn't notice how many there were. But I wonder if this is going to be the thing going forward, because one of the things I liked is that she always wore things that were kind of subdued and very old-timey, 1940s, 1950s-ish, news reporter.
But I get it. The costume designer's oh, she's in love, and Clark and her are together, and now she can wear colors.
True. I guess I could see that.
I guess we'll find out as the season goes on if this kind of thing
Exactly. It's the Wardrobe Watch 2016.
Maybe she got written into her contract that she gets to keep her wardrobe, so it's just every scene she wears something different, so she could take home 50 new dresses every episode. All right, well, let's get into the quote vote for this episode.
What's everybody standing around for? This is a newspaper, not happy hour at Buckingham Palace. What are we here, the Daily Planet, or second stringers from the Weehawken Gazette?
Am I making myself perfectly clear?
All right, we actually had a fair few people come by and vote this week. I'm very, very happy about it.
Nice. Yes, awesome.
A little backstory on this. I'm trying a new voice. For the first time ever, I watched The Fly, the original 1958 The Fly, and I think I can pull off this voice. So it's a bit new, but let's get into it. Cue the music.
Sean Connery and Vincent Price talk in an office.
Vincent, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm not working too hard. Can I go back to work?
No, Sean, I read you like a book.
I like it.
Things get a little rough in your life. You wrap yourself up in your work, like it's gonna save you.
Look, Vincent, I gotta draw the line here. I have a professional life, I have a personal life, and that hick asked me to marry him.
Sean, don't you think you should try dating first?
But see, I really love him.
Well, then there's no problem.
Yes, there is, Vincent. Have you ever thought that you found someone who's exactly right for you, but then you found out something that you never knew about them that you thought you could just wreck it all?
Yes. After my darling Alice and I were wed, I found out her right leg was an inch shorter than her left.
Vincent.
She used to wear these little shoes with wooden wedges in them, made in Portugal. Then on our wedding night, we're standing there in front of each other, in the all together, and she's listing off to the starboard. Her secret was out. See, it didn't make any difference to me because I loved her.
That's so beautiful.
See. That was good. I like it. It does. It's a good Vincent impression for sure.
Yeah. I was trying it all weekend. I'm like, I'm doing this on the show. Hello, I'm Vincent Price.
I like it. It's a keeper.
All right, well, let's get into our second episode discussion today. The episode is Ordinary People, written by Eugenie Ross Lemming and Brad Buckner, a couple of newcomers to the show, and directed by Michael W. Watkins. And this originally aired September 24th of 1995.
I guess I didn't seem very appreciative about all that cheese. Just having a boyfriend who can turn your every whim into reality, it takes some getting used to. I mean, my gosh, if I wanted the perfect pearl from Japan, I wouldn't expect it to just appear. Any more than if I had some sudden craving for Swiss chocolate, I wouldn't expect you to go zipping off to Switzerland. No more than if I wanted snow from the Andes. I mean, they're just idle fantasies, and they're not something that's important to two... You gotta stop doing that.
Why? Making you happy makes me happy.
Did I ever tell you why I gave up my crush on Superman? Because he is a fantasy. And did I tell you why I fell in love with Clark? Because he's real. That's what I want.
You do?
Yeah. He's got problems and insecurities and hat hair.
I do not have hat hair.
If I told Clark that I liked the scent of tulips from Holland, that is not your cue to go taxiing down the runway. It just means that Clark and I would save up and someday take a vacation like a normal couple.
But I am Clark.
But you're also that guy who saves the world from killer bees and props up the Golden Gate Bridge.
Couldn't you just think of me as a very busy, very fast, very strong doctor?
I need some stability.
Lois?
I need a sense that I am not always sharing you with the 5 billion other people on the planet.
If you could just hold that thought.
I need to know that you will be there for me when I need you.
I gotta go.
When Hugh Hefner wannabe Spencer Spencer gets exposed in the Daily Planet article linking him to criminal activity, he wants revenge, offering Lois the chance to come and see his operation and better understand what it is he does, to which, of course, she refuses. What she doesn't know is that Spencer is also completely disabled from the neck down and has a doctor attempting to transplant heads into other people's bodies with the ultimate goal of putting his own head onto Superman's body. As Clark uses his powers to fulfill Lois's every whim and often jaunts away to rescue people, she challenges him not to be Superman for a few days, and he challenges her not to be a reporter always looking for a headline. Knowing that there's something up with Lois and Clark, Perry suggests the two of them get away for some relaxation and to focus on what's really important, their love. Having received an offer for their travel editor to review a remote tropical resort, Perry hands the assignment off to Lois and Clark. Upon arriving, they don't find a hotel but manage to enjoy their time together in the wild. All the while, Spencer trying to sabotage them, from sending in vicious tigers to attack them to poisoning their water, hoping they would feel trapped and call for Superman's help, but eventually he resorts to simply kidnapping them. Using kryptonite, Spencer figures out that Clark actually is Superman, and the operating table is prepped to do a body replacement. Lois manages to escape her cell and sneak into the operating room to steal the kryptonite away, allowing Clark to regain his powers and diverting the liquid nitrogen they were going to use during the operation out towards the doctor, nurse, and Spencer. Spencer's guards come in and start shooting, but the bullets bounce off the recovered Superman and unfortunately hit the frozen trio, turning them into a pile of frozen rubble.
Aha! Ha! I knew you couldn't keep our bargain. 2 hours, and already you're working.
I'm writing my will. This way, when they find our bleached bones, someone will know my last wishes.
Well, if these are my last minutes, who better to spend them with? Alone in paradise with the woman I love. It's almost biblical.
When you were out looking around, you didn't happen to find any proof that there actually is a hotel, did you?
No, but why wouldn't there be a hotel?
Well, maybe no one built one. Or maybe we're on the wrong island, or maybe this is a penal colony. Or maybe no living being has ever been here in the history of the Earth. Why don't you just go and take a quick buzz and look?
Now, how would I do that? I don't buzz anywhere.
Yes, but Superman does.
Yes, but Superman's not here.
That's cute. Boy, that's really cute.
Okay.
Thank you. I knew you'd come through. A joke's a joke, huh? But where's the suit?
What suit? There's no suit. I left it at home. It's just you and me, Joe and Judy regular. Want a neck?
Okay, so let's get into the investigation for this episode. Only a tiniest little bit.
Yeah, well, there's nothing from the script itself. Our reactions had tried, as he always does, tries to find the differences between the script and what was aired. And apparently, however they wrote the script was exactly what they meant to happen, which... I don't know what that says, but that's what we got. So now, what I found was in the wiki, in the Lois and Clark wiki that I go to, they actually had a little bit of information here, which it's not much for story-wise, but I had mentioned something about there's supposed to be a new title sequence coming up. And I was wondering, like, you know, that happens usually in the beginning of the seasons and everything. And I was wondering why it hadn't started yet for this season, because it's still the same one if I remember correctly, because I actually kind of like fast forward through the credit sequence because I'm like, oh, it's the same thing, but I forgot that it's a new season, so we probably have a new sequence, but we didn't. And what happens is, starting with the third episode, there's supposed to be a new credit sequence. I was like, why? And then I saw in the wiki that this episode that we're talking about here, this Ordinary People, is the last episode where Lois has long hair. And I'm like, Oh yeah. Okay. And I recall the change, you know, thinking back to when I first saw it. But combine that with the fact that they didn't start the credit sequence yet. I'm wondering, was this episode filmed along with the premiere? Were they all filmed before the actual start of the third season proper? Like, were they filmed during the last season because of the hair change and everything? I'm wondering if that's what happened.
Well, maybe at the same time they just want to resolve this storyline, because we pick up where we left off at the end of season 2. So they kind of want to kick that up again, get this going, and then sort of make the change, I guess. She's going to change up her look. We mentioned about the last episode that obviously she's wearing a lot more vibrant clothing these days as well.
Right.
So they're kind of, I guess, maybe sort of getting us into the feel of Lois and Clark as a couple before they change it up proper.
That could be. I just thought it was weird that we have 2 episodes where it's like kind of like the old hairstyle and the old credit sequence, and then boom, it's supposed to all change for the next episode. And it just seemed very drastic all of a sudden, just like the 3rd episode in, we're going to change things up. But yeah, maybe that's what they were thinking, just gradually get into it.
We'll have to find out what episode 3 is all about, I guess.
You know, I dreamed of this. Spending the night in your arms. First it was Superman I dreamed of. Then it was Clark.
What happened?
Well, first you held me in your arms. And then we kissed. And then I asked you how you felt about me.
I don't know how I feel about you. There is no one way. I feel so many things, and all at once. Happy. Kind of scared, too. Excited. Calm. Lost. Found. I feel safe in a way that I've never known, but in danger, too. This thing between us, whatever it is, it's stronger than me. Being with you is stronger than me alone. That's new to me.
Well, let's get into the main story. And our lead here, magazine magnate makes like a mad scientist. Try saying that one 10 times fast. Lois breaks this huge scandal over this dating, I want to say website, but I'm not sure.
No, I think it's supposed to be just like a magazine. The way I got it is that he was supposed to be like a Hugh Hefner type thing with a Playboy type magazine. And that's why Perry looks at the magazine. He's like, this is just a skin mag, Jimmy. And he's like, no, they've got good articles.
Yeah, it's called Love Fortress.
Right.
It's a very PG name for a magazine. It's no Hustler or Playboy.
Right.
It's just Love Fortress. And the owner is this guy, Spencer, and he calls her to explain what was going on here. She's breaking this thing. I guess magazine's going to go under because of this expose. But she pretty much just says that he disgusts her and he needs to piss off.
Do you know who Spencer is?
Well, again, he's like a face that you look at and you're like, I know this guy from somewhere. No idea where I've seen him.
Yeah. It's funny because most of these guys that I see in here are people from sitcoms that I remember when I was growing up as a kid, because I grew up in the 80s and that's when they had these shows, and then boom, here they show up on Lois and Clark. This was his name is David Leger. I knew him from again, sitcom Tom. He's from a sitcom called Empty Nest, which starred this guy. His name was Richard Mulligan. I don't know if you know that name. He looks like someone that would have been in Police Academy, even though he wasn't. He reminded me of the police captain in Police Academy. What was his name? The one that was that we talked about. He was in Sliders. He played Old Quinn.
George Gaines.
Yeah, Richard Mulligan reminds me a little bit of George Gaines. Tall, gray-haired, thin actor. But anyway, he plays a doctor in Empty Nest, and his daughters come back home, I guess, and he's good with his patients and he's good with that whole thing. But trying to help his daughters through life is a lot harder. He has difficulty, getting along with them and giving them advice or whatever. And then he has a nurse who's sassy, and then his neighbor, who's a mooch, is always coming over to eat his food and stuff. Sort of like Kramer, now that I think about it, in Seinfeld, was David Leger. He played Charlie Dietz, and he was the next door neighbor, always coming over and had, always some kind of weird thing to say when he came over and grab his food and stuff like that. So that's where I know him from. He was also Joe Isuzu, a spokesman for the Isuzu company, for their commercials for a while. He made all their comedic commercials. So that's where I know him from, and that's who he is.
Well, I don't know either of those things, so I must have seen him somewhere else.
Exactly.
But yeah, he's playing this Hugh Hefner type, pretty much. He's got like the Playboy Mansion, and there's beautiful people everywhere.
Right.
But just to put a twist on it, he's also like megalomaniacal, and he's completely crippled, and he gets around in this weird wheelchair thing that he bumps his head side to side to go forward and backwards and whatnot.
Yeah, when I first saw this episode, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's different. But then, now, today, watching it, it reminds me totally of the Captain Christopher Pike in the original Trek series.
It's like one of those sweatbox saunas or something from back in the 80s or something. That's just, It's a terrible looking device. The idea that he hits little panels on his left and right to do different things,
right.
I mean, does that steer it as well? The logistics of this thing just doesn't make sense. But it's got an Adonis Greek style body on the front of it and everything. And it comes around pretty quickly that there's these murders that have been going on of people being decapitated and stuff, and he's just a head on a box. So you're like, okay, so this dude's looking for a body, and he's got this weirdo doctor who's perfecting a full body transplant, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of his thing. He's just out there trying to find a body, and he comes around to, of course, wanting Superman's body. So he's got to figure out his plan of luring Superman to his secluded island so they can capture him and use kryptonite to take his head off. It's a weird plan. Come on.
It is a very weird plan, and it's man, kryptonite again? It seems so easy to find, doesn't it? I know we had in the finale, which makes sense because he had the kryptonite, but Spencer, he's not really a connected criminal, is he? I mean, they said that he was linked to organized crime and everything like that, and I guess we could sort of assume maybe that he knew someone who had kryptonite, but it seems like kryptonite is too easy to find.
Yeah, exactly. He has this throwaway line about, I'm rich, I can get whatever. And it's you can get a super rare mineral that barely anybody
Right.
has anywhere.
I know.
So it's a bit of a stretch, but coincidentally, Lois is still having her meltdown over Clark and his proposal. So
Yeah.
Perry suggests that she take a holiday. And then this whole ploy gets set in motion where Spencer's going to lure Clark and Lois to the island because they know Superman. So if they're in danger, then Superman will come and save them, right?
It's odd that people know that they're friends with Superman. Like, it just seems like a weird thing to know. And I guess if they're always writing stories about him, I guess they can assume that they know him. It just seems like an odd thing to me. I'm like, oh yeah, everybody knows that these two people are good friends with Superman and he'll just come rescue him whenever. I guess. We'll go with it.
This whole episode seems to be a way of sort of showing that Lois is in love with Clark and not Superman, in a way, I guess. Like, that's kind of the whole thing with, like, she's annoyed with the fact that he can use his powers to do stuff, but, you know, she likes it when it's convenient for her, and
Right.
they kind of come to this agreement that they're going to go to the island and they're going to get away, but for 2 days, Clark isn't allowed to Superman out her or anything like that.
Well, yeah, because he's doing a lot this episode to, like, you know, like, please her. Everything she says, he sort of acts on. She mentions cheese, and he ends up going and getting cheese from France, and we get that little interstitial of a blur going to France, and that French guy, oh la la, or whatever he said.
Which they're doing a lot more lately. Just like the quick
are.
blur of Superman racing off to do something.
And then when she's having her sort of breakdown in the apartment there, and she's talking to him, and she mentions 3 things, and he goes off and gets all 3 things, like, as she's talking. It's like they're doing a lot of that now.
There's even an assassination attempt on her before they get to the island.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
This is lame. You know, she has a go at him for bringing that cheese from France for her. And she's, like, juggling it and everything, and she's out on the street. And this guy calls her up on the phone. So she's standing there, juggling all this stuff. And he's, like, slowly loosening a flagpole or something to fall on her?
A flagpole, yes.
What?
A flagpole.
So weird.
Yeah, it's just like last episode with the aerobics bomb, you know, the jumping jacks bomb. It's like, this is the worst way to try to kill someone. Just do it, you know? I mean, come on. It's so funny. Yeah, he's loosening it. And, like, I don't know. It was, yeah, we that's enough said about that.
Yeah. But it sets up this whole thing. And she pretty much, like, says it to Clark when he's, and, you know, as Superman. It says to him that Superman is the fantasy here, you know. When he saved her from being crushed by the flagpole, suddenly she was all gooey-eyed again. And it's that thing of, like, you know, she can fall in love with that kind of strength and, you know, heroics and all that. But at the end of the day, she loves Clark. And I think that's what she's fighting with here, is that, you know, does she want the fantasy or does she want the real deal? Which I think is, you know, it's a good topic to delve into, really. And it's the way Clark would want it as well, right?
Yeah, it's what he's been looking for this whole time. You know, like he said back when Mason came around, you know, Mason likes me for me. You know, she doesn't care about Superman. She just likes who I am, and that's what he wants from Lois.
So we get in this whole thing of them on the island. They get stranded there. And of course, Clark's like, what can I do? There's nothing I zip around, look for a hotel. Like, I don't zip anywhere. And we get all this stuff of him trying to kill them. He unleashes a tiger, he poisons water. I don't know, it's kind of nice that, you know, he is using his powers, but in a subtle way. And when he zoomed in on the water as well, to see if it was poison, I immediately thought of the other episode when his parents were kidnapped. Remember when we were talking in the deleted scenes that he was supposed to, like, zoom right in on the carpet particles or something, and he was like, he was supposed to have like some sort of graphic of the particles he was smelling and whatnot.
Right.
And he zooms in on the water on this one, and you get to see all of that. And I just thought, oh, okay, maybe it's something that was recycled from that other episode.
No, that's true. Yeah, no, that was a good catch.
But of course, Lois is freaking out that he's not using his powers. And they end up getting, like, stuffed on bananas and just have, like, kissy time by the fire. Until Spencer's men are just like, all right, come with us. Like, this is getting ridiculous already. Why are these people dead?
Why are we being so elaborate? Just go get
And then we get in this whole thing where, like, Clark reveals his identity to Spencer. Not expecting that he would have kryptonite, of course. I was quite shocked that happened.
It's like that time when he revealed himself to the Bureau 39 guy. What was his name?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I can't remember his name now. But yeah, he revealed himself to him and said, no, I'm Superman. And then he goes to aim the gun. He's like, no, don't do it. Because he had kryptonite, so he didn't believe that he was Superman. It took, until a little bit later in the episode, it's like, oh, you actually are Superman. I get it. And it's kind of the same thing here, except it just happens a lot quicker.
And then there's this whole thing, because, like, Clark is taken away. Lois gets out of the cell in a way I can only assume is that Clark broke the lock before going upstairs to reveal his identity.
Yeah, this confused me, too, because I had to go back. I was like, how did she open, like, what? Now, I went back, and earlier in the episode, Clark, he uses his heat vision, and he hits the lock with the heat vision. And I don't know, I forget, I think it, like, not quite exploded, but there was, like, a little pop, and then there was some smoke, right, from the lock. I don't know why. And then when they take Lois, that's what he did. And now, when Lois is back in the cell, she looks at it, and there's this white powder on the lock. Did you see that?
I did notice that. I just assumed it was maybe some sort of leftover from when the lock exploded.
I guess. I mean, it wasn't there earlier. I just remember him doing it, his heat vision onto the lock, little pop, and then when she goes back later, there's this white powder there. Like in caves and stuff like that, like calcifies, and you get that powder. And I was like, what is that? Because they were down in a cave. But yeah, it was weird. It was a weird way to escape. Like, I assume it's just because he popped the lock with his heat vision, I suppose.
And then there's loose bricks lying around too, so she can
very convenient loose bricks. She backs up against the wall, and the exact brick that I happened to be backing up into with my hands behind me, it was loose. Oh, this is great. I'll use this.
Whack this woman over the head with it.
Exactly.
And then that's pretty much it. She's infiltrated the surgery room, gets the kryptonite out of there before they can do anything to Clark. He regains his strength and freezes the doctor and Spencer.
Yeah, and doesn't freeze him because of his super breath. It freezes him because of the liquid nitrogen they were going to use.
Right.
And he blows that onto them, so they're all like completely frozen. And then they get the bullets that the guards come in, they shoot Superman, but then it bounces off of him, hits the liquid nitrogen, the frozen doctor and Spencer and the nurse, and they just explode into like shards of glass. They're all dead.
Superman didn't do it. It was the henchman's fault.
I know. It's odd to see. Like, I would have expected that, the bullets would have bounced off, but he would have like super speeded around and caught the bullets or something like that so that it wouldn't have killed, these guys. But again, he knows the secret. So I guess we got to sort of eliminate them, just like we eliminated that Bureau 39 guy.
And it does make you wonder, like, would he have thawed them out, or are they dead because they're frozen? I know he'd frozen Lois before, but she wasn't in like a block of ice or anything,
I would assume that they probably were.
So maybe Superman did kill them after all. And then it gets to the end of the story. Like, the moral is learned. Lois is learning to accept that Clark and Superman are the same person. And she's going to accept both sides of it, which she believes she can.
I was worried, like, with this episode, when he had to go off and rescue someone while they were talking, I was a little worried because I didn't want this to go in the direction where Lois is like, well, what about me? He has to go save someone again, but, we're talking here. We're having a conversation. Don't fly out on me to, it's like, where do I fit in? And I was like, I hope we don't go there. And we didn't really go there, but I was getting a little worried that that's what this is going to be about. Like, that's going to be the problem she has, that he always has to run off and she has to share him with the world and she just wants him for himself. And I was like, I hope we don't go there.
Yeah, like, this was the episode to deal with that, and let's move on from there now. We'll find out. Well, let's get into some bylines. Okay, we did it in our quote vote. Perry talks about Alice and her leg.
That was weird.
Accepting people for who they are, I guess. That was the moral of the Perry story here.
I think it's great that we get a little bit about Alice, but again, just thinking back, if this was the first season, I know he probably would have come up with a story about Elvis, Elvis and Priscilla, how Priscilla had to accept Elvis, as he was the king of rock and roll and she had to share him with the world and accept that, he was there for her. And I'm sure they could have come up with some kind of Elvis Priscilla story, which would have been so good. But I think we're done. I guess we're done with Elvis. I guess we're not going to hear any more Elvis stories.
Well, after all said and done, it's still a very funny story, just the way he tells
it's still a funny story.
The wooden wedges and they made in Portugal and stuff. Like, he goes into a fair bit of detail about the fact that she's got one leg shorter than the other. He's like, it's random, and it's funny because it's
very
Perry.
random. Yes.
All right, so Jimmy tries to get the free vacation. That was also
Yes.
pretty good.
So he could take his girlfriend from that one episode, the mind control episode, I guess. Don't see her around.
I also thought it was really funny Clark builds that hut. And
Yeah, it looked good at first.
It just immediately falls over. A good bit of humor. The fact that he's... Like, he could probably build something pretty sturdy and quick.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that he's not using his powers, this is the best he can come up with. And then also we get a discussion with Lois and Clark about starting a family and having family.
Yeah, that's cool.
I thought this was quite
Moving it
nice.
forward.
Yeah, when they're sitting by the fire and they sort of go in depth about, you know, her parents and his parents. It does make me wonder because, you know, I'm a big fan of the Jay and Silent Bob movies.
Yes.
And if you know, in Mallrats, there is like a very in-depth discussion about the
Yes.
logistics of Superman having sex with an Earth woman, Lois.
Yes. No, that definitely.
I'm glad it doesn't devolve into that. Of course, it doesn't fit this
Right.
kind of show, but just when they get talking about it, I immediately go to that scene from Mallrats.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Snoochie Boochies. Yeah, no, Mallrats is like a favorite of mine from way back when. When I first saw that movie, I was like, oh, this is like my
I
life
know,
now.
right? It's such good dialogue.
So, yeah, I know what you're saying. It's a good thing they didn't go there.
But it does sort of let you know where their head's at as well, you know? Lois is still
definitely.
trying to come to this decision of marrying Clark, I guess, you know? It's out there.
Right.
But he's sort of laying low. But the fact that they sit down, they have this conversation about having a family, maybe growing old together, you know? What's it like? I liked it. It was very nice.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in this weird episode. There's a couple gems here. There's some diamonds in this rough.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all in all, another typical episode of the week
villain
bad
of the
guy.
week.
But
Yeah.
the overall morals of the story and how it develops the two characters was pretty good.
Yeah.
So he tried to decapitate Superman and make you his love slave? Oh, this is terrific stuff. I mean, of course, you must be very shaken up, unable to write even.
I'm sending you the story now.
Oh, great. Now, Lois, about that other thing with Clark, have you thought it over yet?
Well, things have been pretty hectic. But you know that other side to him I mentioned? I think I decided it's something I could put up with. Good night, Perry.
Good night, sweetie. Oh, listen, Lois, great work.
All right, well, let's get into some back issues.
All right, so I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is. But again, I could not find anything in the actual forums from back then in 1995. It's very weird. So I turned to the Kryptonian Cybernet, which of course is the online magazine that I think it was Jeffrey Gaines and Zoomway herself, when she, was doing this, actually created and made, or she contributed to. I don't know if she actually created it, but she contributed a lot to it. And then other people as well. So I looked in there for the episode, and they did have a review of it by this Marta Olson. And she reviewed the premiere, and basically she loved the premiere. A lot of the things that we said in there, she mirrored. And she loved that we got more of Clark's background, where he's deciding to hide himself. When he was like 13, she said that was great to see. When he was 13, he said, you know what, I can't reveal myself like this. I gotta hide it, and that led to him, as a result, never fitting in and feeling loneliness, and she said that was a really great moment for him, and a great moment for Martha. And she said she loved the make-out moon scene, even if it reminded her of E.T., like we even mentioned E.T., So yeah, she, good points all around. Really liked the episode. And then Zoomway, she had a sort of, not really a review of the episode, but more about like the series in general, about where it's going. And she calls it sci-fi, not sci-fi SCI, but sci-fi as in SIGH, like, that type of sci-fi. And she says it's a style of sci-fi show or superhero show that generates the sighs, due to concentrating on the characters and the relationships and the love they share. She said it's a good thing. She's noticing that's kind of what this is. And she's noticing a trend in some other shows as well. I guess she was watching or had heard about that. They're trying to do that, focusing on the love part. The relationship part, not all like oh, look at the fancy gadgets we have on our spaceship. Like, let's focus on the relationships. And that's good. And she says that's a good thing. And it is, because that's what we do today, pretty much. And we have the Flash, we have Arrow and everything. And yeah, it's great to see them in costume and doing super heroics, but it's more about the relationships of the characters that I think really win us over with those shows. I think, anyway.
Well, the thing about, TV today, The Flash is a good example, is that they have a bad guy and they let that over arc in the season.
Yes.
But
exactly.
This is still very episodic, and they're bringing in villains of the week, and some are better than others. Some of them are just downright awful, so...
Right, yeah.
That's kind of what we have to deal with here, but, it is what it is.
She did make a point that a lot of viewers didn't believe that Lois actually knows now that Clark is Superman. They didn't believe that the revelation was real, because I guess some of her friends and people that she talked to online thought it was all going to be a dream, because they were just used to being jerked around by the network. So they didn't believe. They thought that she was going to forget everything again somehow, or that, it was going to be like a Dallas thing where she wakes up and it's just a dream.
Yeah, or like in the movie where he flies around the earth backwards or something. He's like, oh, whatever. Kisses her and she forgets with his, whatever.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's get into personal ads. We have a couple of little things here we'd like to mention.
So there's been a lot of chatter, which is great, over at the Zoomway forums. If you haven't been over there, and you're really into the rewatch, go over there to the Zoomway forums and sign up for an account and get into the conversation. We had Bev K, and we had Annie. We have Kate over there as well. And basically right now talking about the whole Scardino thing and Lois and Clark and how it all played out, and with was Lois right to ask Scardino out, when she was, with Clark? And some of us are saying, oh, she shouldn't have done it because, she's supposed to be with Clark, but then making very good points about how Lois and Clark really only went out on 2 dates or so at this point when Scardino comes in. So it's not like they're exclusive, but we just sort of assume that they're going to be exclusive because we know where they're going with it. So it's some really good stuff. And there was a good theory or not a good theory, but a good alternate storyline that they were talking about, where it would have been great if they allowed Clark to have been mad that Lois was asking Scardino out, and then basically deciding, I'm moving on. She wants to be with him, fine. I'm just going to do my own thing. And then when Lois realizes her mistake, she has to work hard at getting Clark to actually like her again, which would have been a different way of going about the whole thing, where she's the one chasing him now instead of vice versa. So it was pretty cool. It was a neat little conversation we're having over there on the Zoomway forum. So join us over there.
I also did want to give a shout out to Pam Mansilla, who reached out to us on Facebook. And Pam is from Argentina, and she has her own Facebook group or page, which is, a fan page for Lois and Clark. And she kind of just sent us this message saying, I'm loving the podcast. It's great. I've got my own thing here. And it was really nice for her to reach out that way. So hello to all our South American fans and listeners, and of course the Lois and Clark fans as well.
Yeah, awesome.
And if you want to check out Pam's Facebook page, it's facebook.com/loisandclark.superman.
I like the address, loisandclark.superman. It's perfect.
Okay, well, our next issue, we'll be getting into episodes 3 and 4 of season 3, and those episodes are Contact and When Irish Eyes Are Killing.
So, Contact, I think I know that there's an episode where they deal with aliens.
Alien abduction. Well, I was thinking maybe, Contact with Krypton or something, in the past, before it was exploded or something.
And there was a movie called Contact, too, with, was it Jodie Foster?
Jodie Foster, yeah.
Now, When Irish Eyes Are Killing, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that bomb episode where the criminals were dying and that brought back to life with that drug or whatever.
Right, that Irish guy, yeah.
I just think of the Irish guy. And I can't believe that they would bring him back. But that's all I got. I don't know what else this could be about.
Maybe it's Irish magic. We talked about how Superman's vulnerable to magic, so I'm like, all right, Irish magic.
Whatever it is about, we will find out next week, because that is it for this issue of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or facebook.com/Lois and Clark Rewatch. Don't forget, we are on Twitter at RewatchPod, or you can visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com, which has links to some of our favorite sites there, such as the aforementioned Zoomway.net, folc.wiki.com, and thesupermanhomepage.com. And, of course, we have links to our archive of film rewatch episodes.
And as always, if you want to reach out, say hello, or shoot us some feedback, you can do that by sending a voice message or typing out your thoughts and sending it over to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. It always helps out. And you can help support us by heading over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast and making a monthly contribution as little as $1. We thank all our patrons. You guys are awesome.
Yes.
And of course, we're up on YouTube, so search Rewatch Podcast and subscribe to our channel today. All right, thank you for joining me again, Tom.
Yep.
And I would just say, until next time, I'm off to get a lousy cheese sandwich.
Yummy. We gotta fly.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with Warner Brothers Television, ABC, Gangbuster Films Incorporated, or Roundelay Productions.
Don't believe everything you see on TV.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use.
Let's get legal on this.
Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
Great shades of Elvis.
Copyright 2016, The Rewatch Podcast.
Where are your beepers? We'll be in touch.
Hi, Rewatch Podcast listeners. I'm Corey.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Nathan.
First off, let me say that we have all had a blast doing the Rewatch Podcast. Every week, we put out another episode for free for you. And although we enjoy these discussions with each other, we truly do this for you guys out there in podcast land.
That's right, Corey. But we are here today to tell you about Patreon. Every week, there are costs involved in podcasting about film and television, including hosting and bandwidth charges, our own personal internet usage, and film or show rentals and purchases. So, we're asking you to become a Patreon supporter.
If you can afford as little as $1 to throw our way per month, it would really help us keep the lights on. And if you want to send $100 our way every month, we wouldn't turn that down either. But it's your choice, and we appreciate the support you bring.
As always, we strive to bring you the best quality shows we can create, and we hope that you enjoy them. So head on over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast to become one of our patrons and show your support for the Rewatch Podcast.
And if we get enough patrons, we may even be able to produce exclusive content just for the supporters in the form of simply getting episodes before the main feed release, or even bonus film discussion episodes as a thank you for your support. The website again is patreon.com/rewatchpodcast.
Thanks, everyone.